to Prosperity Radio. Prosperity Radio, your nostalgic station.
To witness the strength of street knowledge.
The willingness to speak truth.
Now, I always want to do something. To help my people.
Yeah! After listening to the lies made up by the federal government, mainstream media.
I'm gonna tell them what.
Ain't right, man, ain't right.
You know what I mean?
I think it's time for you to hear the truth. Tell the truth, man.
Every nation, in every region, now has a decision to make.
Hey, yo! They don't like my songs. Bush came to my yard, he wants to take me on. Phone the most high, I'm like, yo, it's on. Devil's in my face, Pop, don't be long.
All you need is spice and soul. Have no fear, my son, my kingdom you know. 400 years, no knowledge of your home. Now is your chance to reclaim your throne.
Okay, Pop, yeah, no doubt. A bunch of back ones are taking him out. But he reckons I got weapons, what's he talking about? I don't like the way the devil's running his mouth.
Now watch that, it's just an excuse. See, they don't like you, son, cause you tell the truth.
Hey, yo, Pop, United Nations turned up. They wanna search my yard till I them up.
Nah, son, you leave them to me. Now you deal with that portion, call it power fast. I got fire for them backside for those who oppose me. Hurricane, tornadoes, earthquakes, you'll see.
Exodus, the devil we no like. To the left from Rome upon the star line. Sir Marcus Garvey upon my mind. So we look upon the black star line. Exodus, the devil we no like. To the left from Rome upon the star line. Sir Marcus Garvey upon my mind. So we look upon the black star line.
I'm interested in the truth, and the truth is what I will pursue.
We have to recognize who our major enemy is.
The biggest challenge before you right now is, who is the enemy?
Life is becoming increasingly miserable for everybody. But when they find out who it is that's causing the trouble.
I will tell you what the mainstream media will not tell you.
That the Jewish people control the media.
People need to get out of denial very quickly. Because your children are being poisoned, you're being poisoned, children are being indoctrinated and programmed and turned into software programs at school. You're being poisoned in the air, you've been poisoned from the sky, poisoned in your food, poisoned in your water, poisoned by vaccine. How bad does it have to get before people in vast numbers realize that the world ain't like they thought it was?
I'm talking to you. The principle and the idea was divide and rule, divide and conquer. $1 billion a week spent on war. 15 million Americans are homeless in the streets. We can build Iraq and Afghanistan, but leave you with nothing.
You have to come together. There has to be a foundation of unity before you to get anywhere, especially if you're black in this country.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing else.
I want you to hear me.
Yeah!
Speak the truth regardless of circumstance and stand up on the truth from the cradle to the grave.
Devils on some dirty way. Yo, the murder was the case they gave. And it was just the other day when they stepped out the caucus man in cage. The murder's undercover blood. But guess what? They slipped up. The people are starting to wake up. And as soon as we get together, they ain't here to apologize for the outcry while we're on the genocide. Till today, from the time we arrived, Mother Africa is still dripping blood from her eyes. the truth to their hands. And I'ma keep spreading love to the peace. But right now, I'ma drop the truth on the verse. And I'ma dismiss unrighteousness. My backside, they can kiss, they can't handle this. I've got a long list of brains with power and fists who insist government's taking a piss.
Exodus, the devil we no like. So we left from round upon the star line. Sir Marcus Garvey up on my mind. So we left on the black star line. Exodus, the devil we no like. So we left from round upon the star line. Sir Marcus Garvey up on my mind. So we left on the black star line.
Yo, come let me bust the things for all you hustling. I might scuff your Tims how I'm busting in the fight. I'm struggling on some other thing. Head wrap and skull cap, I call my brother king. What I in and you know that. It's like a prison wing, how we keep the show pack. I don't hold back. Radio, play my whole track. Most cats listen close as phone taps. There's no black in the Union Jack. Britain flows pierces like guns with studs in them. Count bars like you're stuck in prison. Count scars in a body that's slug-ridden. It's the fusion of the E's, brews and ganja, giving these youths delusions of grandeur. And only a few who've left to have a stretch on the psychiatric wing return to the manor. I'm the one that rap for them people suffering. Try function in a world that's got no love for them. Enough of them would rather vote for Big Brother than vote for them hypocrites that's in the government. Well, f*** them then. It's Emmanuel and Brother Ben.
Yeah. Exodus, the
Felt it your entire life. There's something wrong. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter.
You think the US don't have weapons of mass destruction?
You ain't going to scuttle more. It's a general idea. With who? I'm working on it.
Jumbo, Hotep Peace Salamo. This is 30 Radio. My name is Sayshara. This is the Sunday Interactive Talk Show. I'm here for the next couple of hours and beyond. And here, and I'm interested to hear from you and your views. And I want to big up Sister Ebony for a couple of hours of keeping you edified and informed and aware about what's going on out there. And obviously, yes, it's a critical time and there's so much things going on out there. It's a difficult time for everybody out there, I would imagine. And really, everyone's got a story to tell. We don't know how long this whole shutdown, this whole isolation, quarantine, this whole pandemic is going to be going on for. And only time will tell, and we'll see what decisions are being made by those people who are in control. And as time goes by, we'll be continuing to talk about our experiences of what's actually happening out there, which is live and direct all across the planet Earth. And obviously, people are dealing with a situation where they're not prepared for in their own forms and ways. And so I'm talking about things from a Black African perspective here in South London, England, the United Kingdom, GB, and Northern Ireland. And we are seeing what's happening here. And you got to be able to mirror things across the planet Earth, okay, to understand or correlate or really investigate what is actually going on. We have to examine and make our own observations about what's going on, rather than we've been spoon-fed by the mainstream media, giving their narrative, giving you their agenda, giving you what they're pushing out there. So it's a beautiful thing that we've got this platform here to kind of look at alternative views, to really get us to really expand and extend the way that we need to be looking at things, right? And the way we're in order to be able to do that is the way that we need to communicate with these types of platforms. So I'm going to big up all those people out there that's been locked in and tuned in, that's interested in what's happening out there. Everybody's got different levels and stages and phases in their life and of how they see situations or how they're dealing with certain things in their lives. Okay, I'm not here to tell people what to do or impose anything on you. All I do is generally give you as much information as I possibly can that's out there that you may not be aware of, The mainstream media is not going to give it to you, okay? So we have to be able to have some sort of counterbalance around here, most definitely. Freedom of speech and freedom of expression is something that we should all adhere as something that we should have a commonality with, regardless of our race, color, creed, religion, ideologies, theologies, whatever, that there has to be some sort of balance around how we have these kind of conversations. So again, like I said, I'm here to mediate, to facilitate, and to conversate around so many things that we need to be looking at. And ultimately, as parents, as adults, as community members, we have a individual responsibility. We have a collective responsibility when we're talking about ourselves as a nation, a group of people. And if you identify that you are of origins of African heritage, African ancestry, African descendancy, whether you want to term that expression of how you want to define yourself, and as time goes by in life, we need to know who we are so we can inform our children about themselves, so they need to know where they're going. Okay, so we have to be able to guide ourselves as a group, individually, as in a collectively, in a way that we have a responsibility to be able to improve our conditions, to improve our environment, to improve our family homes and the structures and everything possible to make us better people for our people, to be able to reflect that on the planet Earth, to be able to make those changes. Because if we're depending on other groups of people to make those changes, it's never going to happen, right? But I'm only talking about things from my perspective, me singly, myself. And I'm always curious to hear from other people's perspective. I'll give out the telephone numbers. You're welcome to phone in or text in your comments, your views, your feelings, your experiences, whatever it is that you have there in your heart and your mind. Telephone numbers are 07305 417 668. I repeat, 07305 417 668 will get you into Fiferity Radio, your nostalgic station. I want to big up Freestar and all the radio presenters and DJs that are currently here, and keep it locked in and tuned in, because we'll be adding more and more DJs to be able to give you different genres of music and edifying you and informing you musically. And also we'll have different presenters giving you their views around different subjects and problems, situations and issues are out there, and wherever, you know, what's going on in their lives. Okay, so sometimes we could talk about our own experiences and make these kind of comparisons. So yeah, now I'm gonna be looking to having a phone call conversation in a few minutes, and just to give another perspective around this whole situation that we're facing today. So we're going to be talking about something that is really currently live, which is presently happening, and I'm talking about it. Why am I interested in it, or why am I talking about it? It's because it affects all people on the planet Earth, especially poor people. And I reflect myself as a Black African person, so definitely I'm more concerned about what's happened to Black African people on the planet Earth, and I've always looked at things like that. So we're never looking at things like it's just about me. It's not about me and what I'm saying. It's not about that. I'm just saying that we need to have our own systems, our own ideas, our own concepts, our own way of doing things in a way that it's going to make this whole planet Earth a better place, because that's going to reflect on everybody else, on every other culture. You know what I'm saying? And we as a Black African people, as a nation of people, we're not warmongers. We're not going around invading and imposing and interrogating and terrorizing any group of people. That's not us historically. Okay, we got some definitely things that we need to correct and sort out within us as a group of people internally, and then we've got some things that we need to deal with externally. So it's just really counteracting these types of things that we need to be looking at as a group of people from our own perspectives. And our perspective is not the same as every other group's perspective, because we historically have different ways of how we came into being and how we evolved and developed as a group of people as a whole. Okay, so we as a Black African group of people, okay, we have our own uniqueness that defines who we are. And you can see that just by looking at us and how we reflect. And that's how the system has set up this whole thing around how to classify people by the color of their skin, calling you a particular race and things like that. So we shouldn't think of, well, it shouldn't happen that we have to have people defining who we are, right? And so these are the kind of things that we're having to grapple with, so many different things that we have to grapple with. And we've got so many problems and issues. And a lot of these problems and issues are generational, intergenerational, and some of them are what's happening just recently in the past, you know, last few decades or so, or just happening right now, presently. So we've got to evaluate all of these different things that we may look at or see how we are as a group of people, as a Black African group of people. We identify ourselves as who we are as a group of people. All right, so we are going to talk about something that is live, which is presently happening around the world. This entire planet Earth that is a pandemonium pandemic based on a so-called virus, COVID-19 coronavirus. So we, over the weeks, slowly but gradually been putting the picture together, just put information out there, just get people informed. And we're not going to know everything all at one time, okay? So the information is coming out, it's pouring out, and really it's only a matter of time when all is revealed. But the cat is definitely out the bag, most definitely. So we're going to see if we can link up my brother here. All right, hold on. Let me get you hooked in. I'm not sure what's happening. Hello?
Hiya.
Right, I can hear you loud and clear. All right, so.
Good.
Good afternoon, brother Dave. And yeah, it's good to hear from you.
It's good to be here.
Great. So I've just been rambling on about a few little things, okay? So what I want to do to get the listening audience familiar with you and what you're saying, if you could just give us a short synopsis about who you are, where you're coming from, and that journey of how you got here at this particular point in time. And then we'll go through a few questions and see if we can highlight a few things that's going on out there that we can connect to getting people to understand from your perspective. And, you know, what can we do also to deal with it? Or, you know, what can we actually do around what's going on other than we need to be informed about what's going on. So I'm interested to hear from you, and I want other people to be interested in talking to you. And hopefully maybe one or two people can actually text in and ask you a few questions as time goes by, if that's all right.
Okay. Right. So I'm known as Dave, or allegedly Dave. I used to be a computer programmer, and I actually went to live in America. I lived there for about 15 years. I was at 9/11. Literally, I turned down a job for Lehman Brothers on the 40th floor of Tower 1 a month before 9/11 happened. And I took a job across the water in a place called Hoboken, which is directly across from the World Trade Center. And I watched it from there. And at the time, I didn't think anything was quite strange. I mean, it was very, very surreal. But it was about 4 years later that I realized the whole thing was staged. So I started this quest to find out what, the truth behind it. And that led me on to finding out, other truths. And that was about 15, 16 years ago. And I haven't stopped since. I went from 9/11 to the New World Order, to the monetary system, to the legal system, to the health system, to I looked at every single aspect of my life and searched for the truth behind it. And so every time I found out some truth, I had to either accept that truth and change my life accordingly, or live the lie. So I've changed my life. So now I don't work. I actually help people for free. That's what I do pretty much all day, and research and give talks and do interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much me.
Yeah, interesting. And you can give out your web address details as and when you like, just to let everybody get familiar with some of the things that you're talking about. I've had a look at your website.
I'm really sorry. You sound very sort of far away and muffled. I can hardly hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right, okay. So, yeah, I was just saying that basically I'd be interested to get you to actually inform everybody about your website and, just mention it as and when, as you go along, where people can go and get some of that information. All right?
Okay, well, I might as well give it out now. My website is allegedlydave.com.
Yeah.
And my YouTube channel is dmurphy25. That's DMURPHY 25. But you'll find all that on my website anyway.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you mentioned about 9/11, and I'm sure some of us will be familiar with actually watching that event or being, experiencing their life revolving around that event, no doubt. But, the younger generation will have no connection with that. So sometimes we have to find a way to kind of break information down to them to get them to understand that things are leading up to certain things that you may not be able to understand because you've never experienced that at the time. So it's just getting them to link up that connection and stuff like that. But other than that, most people that were around, mostly, we're not talking about the millennium babes, generally speaking, but those before the 90s and, before was born in the 90s and 80s and so on and stuff like that, they would have saw the actual event. And like you said, it was a pivotal point for, I would imagine, an awakening for hundreds of thousands of people in some respects, okay? Because it opened my eyes. And like you said, just to touch a note with you, that I actually, when I saw it, we actually saw it on TV, the second event, the second plane crash, so-called plane crash anyway. And like, I never thought anything. Obviously, you don't think anything. You're clueless, really. You're ignorant to everything. You're not thinking anything suspect. But I knew the next day that was an inside job. That's what I knew. But I didn't know the facts and all of that stuff. All that stuff came out a lot later, and it's probably one of the biggest conspiracies on top of conspiracies on this planet Earth, definitely in the 20th century or 21st century. Okay, say 20th century to 21st century, because it's been planned prior to that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's interesting that that's what's happened to a lot of people, and like you said, people are beginning to expand on information and knowledge, and being able to share that knowledge and information is kind of a really great thing. So,
well, it's good that you were ahead of the curve, finding it out the next day, because it took me 4 years, because I basically, because to me, I had to be at work the next day.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, that event happened, now let's move on. But it was 4 years for me. And what happened was I was helping my daughter with her physics homework.
Yeah.
And she had a problem that, a marble on the tabletop's a meter high. How long does it take the marble to hit the floor?
Yeah.
So we sat and worked it out. And, after a few problems, my daughter said, "I've got it, Dad, I've got it." I said, "Okay, one more problem. Let's imagine it's the World Trade Center, and we had a bowling ball on top of the World Trade Center. How long does it take the bowling ball to fall down?" So we sat and worked that one out, and it came out to be about 10 seconds. And that's when a light bulb went up in my head. I was like, hang on a minute, I remember the whole building fell down in that speed. So I went back and watched the film, and sure enough, the whole building fell through itself, through the path of most resistance, at the same speed as a bowling ball falling through empty air, which is absolutely impossible. That's when I realised that this can't be true. And I started investigating. I thought I was the only person in the world who knew there was something wrong. But then I found a whole load of people online who found other things that were wrong with it, and that's what launched me into 15 or 16 years of truth seeking.
Yeah, definitely. I think they over-egged that one, most definitely. I only just had an intuition, that's all. It was just an intuition, and it was based on the fact that I knew that the United States government would have the best defense system on the planet Earth, okay? And the operation would have been a sophisticated and highly intelligent, organized, very coordinated operation, okay? And there's no way that could have happened without inside knowledge or participation. So I just put that evaluation into it as the probabilities that the people that they claimed that actually did it, if they said they did it, they would have got assistance by inside people.
That's interesting you bring that up, because that brings a very good parallel with what's happening now. Because what you just mentioned there was the fact that the very thing that was in place to stop 9/11 happening, that is NORAD, with its fighter jets that patrol around America, making sure that very thing doesn't happen. Planes getting hijacked and going off course. Yeah, NORAD was running a drill on that day. And they were drilling exactly that scenario where planes get hijacked and are aiming towards various targets in America, and literally they were drilling that scenario, but they were drilling that scenario somewhere else. So there were no planes guarding the United States at that moment, and only at that moment. No other time in America's history. Yeah, just that time.
So they was doing a sort of demonstration exercise then, are you saying?
They were doing a drill. Right, a simulation, of that very scenario, right? And this is one of the hallmarks of a false flag operation.
Yeah.
Could
you explain a little bit around what false flag is and maybe how it even originates to get some people familiar with that, because they may not understand what's that about? And then we can tie it up with everything else.
Right, a false flag event is an event that's created by the government, who's the target of the event, or it's it's like an organised, simulated drill type thing, but it's passed off as reality. Yeah, so there's been many false flag events since since 9/11. There've been many false flags before that. It's been declassified that the event that got America into the Vietnam War was a false flag event. That is, America pretended that Vietnam shot at one of their gunboats, and so they had to retaliate, and that was the war.
So basically, they're creating a scenario for a false premise, and or some way to rationalize or justify going into your country or committing a war or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, they create an event to because they want a particular goal to come out of it.
Yeah.
So they create an event. It's problem, reaction, solution. That's the methodology. They create a problem, right? They wait for they create a problem that they blame on somebody else, yeah, and then they wait for the public reaction, which is usually somebody's got to do something, and then they come along with a solution that they had in their back pocket all along that they couldn't have got in any other way. So in that case of Vietnam, they wanted to go to war with Vietnam.
Yeah.
So they created this problem, a gunboat getting shot. They waited for the American public to go, we can't let this happen. We've got to do something. And they said, okay, we're going to go to war. And so they got into war. And they've been using that trick over and over and over and over again.
Yes, yes.
So, and this is where we are now. This whole coronavirus is a false flag. They've created this fake problem, and they kind of waited for the public reaction to what was going on in China, and so they were waiting in the background with their raft of solutions, which is the lockdown. This massive overreaction lockdown, then the virus, the vaccine, and the chip, and the cashless society. All these things that normally they would have to do one at a time, because that's how they do it. They do one of these goals at a time. But it's like they're running out of time now, so they're going all in, and they're throwing everything, the kitchen sink as well.
Yeah, it sounds like to me that in my head all along, I'd say from around more or less when it started in January, I had in my mind that they was getting desperate. That's the word I was using, that the ruling classes, I identify these people that's in control, and a lot of people don't understand maybe certain things, and maybe you can explain it a bit better than me, that we have a group of people, just a very small group of people, and it's nothing new, because actually the mainstream media actually do talk about the 1%, right? Which is actually less than the 1%, but we go along with that, right? But they don't highlight, they don't talk about it a lot, right? But we do know that there's a very small collective group, I call them the ruling classes, the elite, that have the power and influence to affect people's lives. Basically, they're using their money as influence and power to just manipulate the system whichever way they can, and how they do that by basically, like you said, they use tricks and all kinds of forms of deceptions, okay? And they corrupt governments, they influence governments, they infiltrate governments. They, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things going on, and it has been going on. And this is just, to me, just a build-up of a plan that probably was being planned out. We don't know how many years in advance, because like you said, a lot of these things are being pre-planned, and they obviously they got an agenda and they focus on it, and they use the argument rhetoric to be able to use these concepts to fool the masses of people. But I wanted to say, what are the key factors, information recently that's been coming out, because obviously information is coming out more and more, that relates or connects or correlates with evidence around this suspected COVID-19 coronavirus. So we're going to look at that. We're going to identify this whole thing, right? What was happening before, what was happening during the so-called called out of the event, and then what's actually happening now? What was the response and all of that stuff, which you just identified as recently? So we've identified they're talking about coronavirus, COVID-19. What have you discovered about that so far?
Right. Well, as part of my journey, I went into looking at alternative health, mainly because I was sick myself and I wanted to find out how to heal myself. And I ended up writing a book called The Human Body Owner's Workshop Manual. So I figured out, how the human body really works and how to heal it with nothing.
Repeat that again so people can get locked into that.
All right, it's called The Human Body Owner's Workshop Manual by Allegedly Dave. And as I said, it's just about how the human body actually works, because it works completely differently to what they tell you it does, and how to heal it with nothing.
So when you say they, just to stop you, who's they? Just refer to Pacific, maybe? Are you talking about the medical industry? Because really, we're talking about the medical industry or people that deal with biology generally.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch the first bit. The first bit of your question.
Yeah, no. When you said they, okay, I wanted to identify who you're talking about. They are you talking about the government? Are you talking about the medical industry? Are you talking about a combination of what?
Again, it's a combination of the elite class that we're talking about, the same elite class we're talking about, and the medical system that they created. Yeah. I'll just briefly tell you what they created. In 1900, there were all sorts of different types of medicine. Yeah, and you would go to the right type of practitioner depending on what was wrong with you. Yeah, so if you had fever, you might go to like a naturopath. If you had a back problem, you go to a chiropractor. If you got knocked down by a bus, you would go to an allopath. Right? An allopath, is there for trauma care. Yeah, the allopath would only deal with the symptoms of the problem. The bleeding, the broken bones, that sort of thing. And he wouldn't care about the cause, because the cause in this case would be the bus. Okay? So what happened in 1910 was the Rockefeller family, or Rockefeller Foundation, they went around America and inventoried the whole of the medical system, the medical state of the medical art, okay? Discovered that allopaths were probably the best one to suit their purposes. And what they did was massively funded the allopathic practitioners. Everybody else they didn't fund, okay? They just gave millions of dollars to allopathic medicine, okay? They set up medical schools teaching allopathic methods. They set up hospitals that were only staffed by allopathic practitioners. Right? They set up licenses that only recognized allopathic methods. Right? So essentially, every illness now is treated by treating only the symptoms, not the cause. Okay, so that's a method that's never going to work for anything. Yeah. So it's and I always use the example that imagine that you're driving and your engine warning light comes on. Yeah, that means there's a problem with the engine, but you don't know what the problem with the engine is. You just get the warning. Yeah, that little light that comes on.
Yeah.
So imagine you go to a garage and you give it to the mechanic, and while he's got your car around the back, all he does is take the bulb out. Okay. So now your warning, your only indication that there's a problem, is gone, and you think everything's fine. Okay. But no, the problem, the actual cause of the light, yeah, is still there, but you're not aware of it anymore. And now this thing is going to get worse and worse and worse. And eventually, there's going to be a catastrophic failure, and it's going to seem like it's something completely different. And that's the same in the human body. They only treat the symptom. They take the bulb out, so you don't feel what the problem is anymore. You know, they deaden your nerves or do something so you don't feel the symptom anymore. But the problem is still there and getting worse and worse and worse. So that is the entire medical system. And one of the things that they included in the their medical system is something that was discredited a long time ago, and it's called the germ theory. And that was put forth by a number of people, but most notably by Louis Pasteur.
Yeah, I've heard of Louis Pasteur, yeah.
Yes. So he put forward this idea that there are lots of invisible microbes and creatures and living organisms that are floating in the air, and if you breathe them in, or get them in somehow through your mucous membranes, they're going to invade your body and overwhelm your body, and then you get infected, and that's it. You could possibly die from a viral infection. But he was up against somebody called Antoine Béchamp, who was saying, no, that's not it at all. It's the state of your body, the state of toxicity of your body, and perhaps the environment that your body is in. Right? And so these two had a battle, basically, a rivalry for years, until Louis Pasteur was on his deathbed. And on his deathbed, Louis Pasteur said, actually, Antoine Béchamp, you're right. I'm wrong, right? I made it up. I'm wrong, okay? And he said that, and but the allopathic system basically ignored that, and it has run ever since with the Louis Pasteur model that germs and viruses and bacteria comes from outside and infects you and that. No, the truth is, viruses and bacteria, you're made up of more bacteria than human cells. Yeah, you're full of bacteria. Every single type of bacteria you can imagine, you've already got inside you. You've got salmonella, you've got E. coli. It's all inside you. Yeah, and what bacteria do is get rid of dead and dying material in your body, just like flies get rid of crap. Whenever crap appears, flies appear and get rid of it, and process it to get rid of it. Okay, so when your cells get toxic, so you ingest some kind of toxin or breathe it in or whatever, some kind of toxin, right? Your cells produce viruses, and viruses aren't living beings, living organisms. They're just chemicals. Okay, so they can't multiply, they can't move by themselves, they can't float in the air or anything. They're just chemicals. Okay, and this chemical does have some as it breaks down tissue, right, because it's, as I say, it's meant there to clean toxicity. As it cleans toxicity and breaks down tissue, it gets some DNA or RNA from those tissues. So these doctors who assume it goes the other way round, that the viruses come in and cause toxicity. Yeah, they say, oh, that's a virus you've got there, and you've picked up this virus and it's infecting you. It's kind of like saying dustmen go around creating rubbish. Yeah, and you can imagine that. Every time there's you see dustmen around, there's rubbish. Yeah, but but they've just got it backwards, and they're running with that idea.
So are you saying that the model, or what you call the system that they've created, okay?
Yeah.
Because you're right, there is a group of people, or these same people that you're referring to, the big top level corporations, okay, that are pushing these chemicals, for example, okay, or pushing these pharmaceutical drugs and stuff like that, okay. Mm-hmm. You find that really they're just bullying everybody, okay, just to get their way, right? Rather than investing at natural things, like you just mentioned about, is it naturopathic? The naturopathic, which has been around for quite a while now. And so you get what's happening is that, and it's been going on for quite a while, they're just getting away with it, basically, just throwing money at it so they can avoid dealing with the naturopathic or the natural remedies and such things like that. Okay, because obviously it takes money out of their mouths, and obviously, it's going to destroy their business. Okay, so basically, a lot of people don't understand some of the things to do with that, the political aspects, okay, as well as the biological aspects, as you're referring to the biological aspects, right? Where we have these natural viruses and antibodies and things like that to help to clean up our system, to protect our immune system and things like that, right? And they, like you said, I think that all they've been doing is using their science to manipulate the science, to deceive people with the science, okay, with an idea, with a simple idea or an idea that they think, oh, it's just going to work, but they're not caring about the consequences or the harmful effects of it. All they're interested is that they can sell it. It's just a product to sell. And, it's difficult for people to understand the biological aspects because it is so complicated in certain respects. But like you said, if you can break it down to people in layman terms so people can understand what the body is the most complicated system on the planet Earth. It's more complicated than any computer models that they're trying to create. So it's difficult for some people to understand, and I think a lot of times they're getting misled or misguided around how the medical industry seems to have a system that you have to believe in what they're actually doing, in actually, delivering what they're supposed to be doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the medical system is intentionally vague when they talk about things, illnesses and stuff. And take this virus, this idea of a virus. Okay, they're very intentionally vague. You talk to a doctor and say, is a virus alive? And they'll kind of dance around the question. They'll say, well, not quite, but it still takes over. They'll say, it's not alive, but it will take over a cell and then cause that cell to produce more viruses. Well, how does a chemical do that? It doesn't. Yeah. So they're trying to say, oh no, it's not alive, but it's alive. Yeah. So they make these ideas vague, and then they use the media to help you fill in the gaps with bullshit, so that they can say that they were telling the truth, and it's your fault that you got misled. So they leave this idea of viruses vague, and then you watch films like Outbreak and Contagion, and all these horror films.
In fact, Brother Dave, I was watching a few weeks prior to that a drama series called The Black Death.
Mm-hmm.
This was going on for weeks, every week, right? And I don't know how long it was going on. I just turned off channel hopping and I just saw it on. It just said black. When you see the titles, Black Deaths. I thought, oh, let me have a look at that. It's got black in it. You know what I mean? So I looked at it, right? And all I see is just people going around killing people because they got some disease or something. You know what I'm saying? They're just going around killing these people. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really pay much attention to it, but it was just like crazy even watching that. You know what I'm saying? And it just sort of reflects on what's actually happening now. And like you said, they've bombarded the media with all these types of kind of subliminal messages, okay, before the actual event is happening. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, what you got to realise is television was never meant for entertainment. Yeah, never meant for that. It was given to us for a reason, for a very good reason. Not for us. It's not to benefit us, not to inform us, not to make us happy or anything like that. It was to program us. Yeah, it was to give us the reality that they want us to have. Yeah, that's why they put lots of cop shows on TV so that you get the impression that cops have more power than they actually have. So then, once everybody has got that in their mind, then the cops can just assume those powers and nobody bats an eyelid because that's what they expect. Yeah, so it's literally creating our reality, and so that's how they use this box in the corner, but to create the reality that, which it isn't, the reality that these viruses are living organisms that float in the air, waiting for somebody to breathe it in and get infected. So no, it doesn't work like that. The only way you can get a virus is if somebody injects you with it. Yeah, I mean, the only way to get a foreign virus, because as I said, the body creates them. The only way to get a virus that doesn't belong in your body is if somebody injects them past your body's natural defense system, which is the layers of skin around you. Yeah, so it's literally, we were given television back in the 60s or something, yeah, because nobody could afford them at the time. If you probably don't remember, but they used to let people rent them for next to nothing.
Yeah.
That was back.
Yeah.
So
and also interesting, just to touch on this, okay. A lot of these things that we got in our house, especially a lot of electronic gadgets and stuff like that, wherever it is, okay, they've been used, right, and mainly by the military-industrial complex. Really, they're the ones that's been using it, okay? They try and test it and all of this stuff, okay? They use it for whatever purposes, for war. Everything's to do with war, okay?
Yep.
In terms of a lot of these products that they produce, okay, and then they mass produce them to the general public, okay, for various purposes, okay, that a lot of people don't even understand. You know what I'm saying? So it's all coming from there, and generally touch on that for a little bit, because a lot of people don't understand see the connections.
Well, yeah, you're right, because most people don't realise that they carry around with them an extremely advanced computer system, a very, very powerful computer system that tracks them, that not only tracks their motions, but tracks their face, it tracks their voice, it listens to them, it watches them, yeah, and they carry it around with them. But we call it a phone. Yeah, we think it's there for a benefit to us, to help us, but it's not helping us. It's helping other people to do nefarious things to us.
Exactly, and there's the data as well that they're keeping and doing all kinds of things, and like you said, spying on you, whole range of things.
Yeah, it's not just spying on us. It's actually learning about us, learning about how we react and respond to things. That data is extremely important to them. And we're giving up that data without knowing it, without realizing it. Every time you do something on Facebook, you're actually adding to that database about how you respond to things, So this is the thing, with this media, with this entertainment medium that they've created, they're using that to create this current pandemic. Yeah, there's a film called Wag the Dog. If you get a chance, if you can, download it and watch it, or get it on whatever Netflix thingy you use. But it's called Wag the Dog.
I think you have to buy it. You have to buy it, because I think I tried to look at. Yeah, I tried to see it myself, but I couldn't. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's kind of an old film. It's got Dustin Hoffman in it, and he plays a Hollywood director who, because the president is not doing very well in the polls in an election year, decides to create a war on television and convince the American public that they're at war with Albania, and but he manufactures the whole thing on television. And the whole public, believes it, and that's the thing.
So that's really the power of persuasion you're talking about.
Yes. So they use this media, and they've known they can use this media to affect people and affect their reality. Ever since the 30s, there was a big test they did on the American public to see the power of the media. and the media back in the 30s was radio. So I don't know if you remember or have heard of this, but Orson Welles did a production of War of the Worlds, but he did it in the style of a news report.
Just hold that thought, right, Brother Dave, okay? Because we're going to take an interlude for about 60 seconds, get something to drink and come back, and then we'll come back.
For Africans here, it's not healthy for us to stay here all winter. That's a real problem for us because we need intense sunlight all of the time. And the darker you are, the more vulnerable you are by staying in dim areas of the country and not getting adequate exposure. So I have found ever since I healed myself of cancer in '86 that I cannot stay here through the winter. I actually feel the strain and I feel the dipping into my reserves of energy. So I just go to the tropics where I was indigenously born and created to be and get sunlight.
Original. 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 Original.
Yes, good day, Brother Dave. We're back again. Yeah. Yes, good. Yes, as you were saying about we was talking about the military-industrial complex and connecting us to all the gadgets that they've used to use and stuff like that, and how they've given it to us and for various reasons, purposes. Yeah.
Right. Well, I was actually saying before the break about Orson Welles in the 1930s did a production of War of the Worlds.
That's right.
But he did it on the radio in the style of a news report, and on the basis of that broadcast, people were committing suicide.
Wow.
Over this idea that aliens were attacking New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay? So people literally took their lives because of this news report, and so when you look into the backstory of this event, you find, surprise, surprise, the Rockefeller Foundation basically funded it.
So what period are we talking about when that film, the radio production came out? Because obviously the film came out afterwards.
Yeah, 1930s. It was somewhere in the 1930s.
Right.
Orson Welles did the narration. Obviously his voice has a certain gravitas to it.
Yeah. So at that time, the invention of radio, transistor radio, was just more and more prevalent at the time as well. Was it?
Yeah, because that was the mass media of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now the mass media is TV, much more efficient and much more powerful than the radio. And as I said,
because of the visual effects, obviously.
Yes. So literally, it creates a false reality for anybody who watches it. So this event that we're seeing now is a wag the dog scenario. They're literally creating it on television, and we know because we've had news reports of hospitals being overrun and sort of heaving at the seams with COVID-19 patients. Right? But we've had citizen journalists, real journalists, ordinary people, actually going out and investigating, going to those very same hospitals the next day and finding them totally empty. So on television, it looks like, there's a massive epidemic and lots of mayhem going on, but in reality, you actually go there and see. I even sent my mum down to have a look at the local hospital, and she said, no, it's empty. All the ambulances all lined up. There's nobody doing anything there, you know. So,
it's amazing
you know,
what you're talking about, because now there is a difference between what's going on with the mainstream media and what they're pushing at, and what's going on with social media. So social media is like it's a good tool for ordinary people to use to be informed and to share that information about what is actually going on, right? Which is what I think is more interesting to listen to, rather than, you know, what the mainstream media is all about, which is really trying to brainwash you, program you, condition you to think on a certain narrative or a script, right, that they've got to follow themselves. Those people, all those people that's working in that industry, they're following the script. You know what I'm saying? So what I see is that social media versus mainstream media, and the censorship around some of the information that's been presented on mainstream media that they're trying to curtail or they're trying to shut down completely, which shows to me that, all right, they want to suppress information, that's fine, but at the same time, they want to push what they want to push. I mean, there's an imbalance here, or imbalance here, that to me shows that they're covering up something somewhere down the line. You know what I'm saying? Because why are they behaving in such a manner like this? And we know that most of the news media corporations, and for those younger generation may not understand that we was around when Fleet Street was around, and all right, fair enough, it was controlled to a certain degree. There's no doubt about that. But there were some independent, reporters, news broadcasters, and all of this stuff. Now it's totally controlled by just a few individuals. What do you think about that?
Right. Well, to go back to the earlier point you made, you remember I was saying about drills and simulations.
Yeah.
Well, this particular event had its own drill and simulation. It was called Event 201. Okay, and that happened in October last year, and it simulated exactly what actually happened. A few months later. Yeah, so they ran through exactly everything that's happening now. Was you can go to find it now. Go to search for Event 201 and listen to all their scenarios and stuff, and you'll find it's exactly what's going on now. And all the major players in that Event 201 are the major players in the world today handling this so-called pandemic. So it's literally the simulation that went live, just like all the others. So, and I forgot where I was going
it's interesting what you're saying about the way that they're manipulating this whole thing.
I know. Sorry, I wanted to make the other point was if you look at some of the things they were simulating, right? They're also simulating what our response would be, and you'll find that in this event they say, okay, well, social media, people on social media are spreading disinformation and misinformation, and we have to do something about that. So essentially, they're saying, when we try and spread the truth, they're going to have to stop that, and literally they ran through all the measures that they would take to stop the truth getting out, and only their narrative getting pushed to the masses. And so, yes, that's why we're seeing. You put up a video. My first video about coronavirus was up for 3 hours. It got 11,000 views, and then literally just down.
To shut it down. Wow! If within 3 hours, because they have shut down. A lot of people's videos, a lot of people's videos and channels and all kinds of nonsense. You know what I mean? But you know what you highlight, because I've seen some of that stuff you're talking about. Okay, and I think from what I understand, there's about 15 organizations involved, including most of them mainly from America or Europe and Southeast Asia or China, right? And so, Bill Gates, Bloomberg, the Johnny Hopkins Institution, and various other organizations that were there to go through that stimulation pandemic exercise, okay? Just to question or to understand how to counteract all events that could happen, or any eventualities that could happen, right? So they're just trying to cover up everything possible so that they can just, like with this consensus that they're dealing with now, like you said, they already thought about that in that exercise meeting, which is about 5 hours long. But you know what else is interesting that I noticed that was happening as well? We correlate with that there was an exercise, a military industrial exercise in China around about the same time. There was about 110,000 military personnel were there, and they was doing some sports activities around about the same time in October. Right? So, going back to China, let's look at China, because why they're saying that China's the epicenter of all the things, okay? Initially, the narrative that they're giving us is that it's coming from a wet market, okay, where they got exotic animals or, wild animals and domestic animals all mixed up together and blah, 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 right? How does that look to you? Because I think that there's some issues around the idea that they said that the virus comes from a bat or from a contamination of two animals with the bat virus, okay, and that's initially how it started from that wet market. So this is what they're saying. So basically, they've narrowed it down to saying that people are drinking bat soup and all of this stuff, right? So that is the one theory that they've come out. I've got a list of theories already, right? But that's one of the main theories that the World Health Organization, which is under the auspices of the United Nations, as you know, right, who are really actually leading this whole thing, right, from what I see anyway, yeah? So they're saying it's coming from that wet market. Initially, no one's bothered to investigate it, or there's not much going on there. No one knows really where it's coming from. Okay, so, all right, that's that, right? And then the other theory is that it leaked out from one of those labs 300 meters away from the wet market, right? We know there's a lab there, what you call a biosafety level 4 lab. That deals with virology, that deals with viruses. And then there's another lab about 300 kilometers away from the wet market, okay? So could you elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
Well, first of all, the weapons labs are irrelevant as such as far as the initial spread of this thing. They're irrelevant, okay? As I said, the only way that you can catch a foreign virus is if it's injected into you. And yes, they're making these exotic viruses to be injected into you, right? It doesn't matter. There's a story of, I think it was Jonas Salk, the one who supposedly invented the polio vaccine. He had a beaker full of polio virus, yeah, on the table, and somebody knocked it over and smashed the beaker on the floor. And everybody ran out of there, as quickly as they could, okay? And they came back and found Jonas Salk mopping it up, just standing there in his, shirt and tie and everything, just mopping it up, laughing to himself. Because, he knew that you can't catch a virus, yeah? So we can drop that idea. Yeah.
So what about these viruses that they're making? These biological.
I just said the only way they can get it into you is to inject it into you. So essentially, that's what they're making them for.
Right. So what about the alarm there? I mean, they're showing pictures of people apparently being hospitalized and all of this stuff. Okay, there's how many cases? I was just getting to that bit. Go on, sorry.
So the other thing that happened, there's two things about Wuhan that are kind of interesting and salient. First of all, Wuhan is one of the most polluted places on Earth, really. And 2 months before this outbreak, Wuhan became the first city in the world to be the fully integrated smart city with 5G, blanketing the whole city. First one in the world. Yeah. Now we've done some investigation into 5G, and we find that the frequencies that 5G uses, they go from 6 gigahertz all the way up to 100 gigahertz, right? Well, one of the frequencies that 5G uses is 60 gigahertz, which has a very strange effect on the oxygen molecule. Okay. Now I'll explain it in terms of like a microwave oven. Okay. In a microwave oven, the frequencies generated by that microwave oven are around about 2.4 gigahertz. And what that does to water is that it is absorbed by water. That frequency, gets absorbed by water. And what it does, it alters the way the hydrogen bonds to all the other, atoms around it. So water, which is H2O, as the hydrogen atoms start to absorb the 2.4 gigahertz, they kind of change their orientation a bit. So it turns the water into something that's not quite ordinary water. And in that process, the water heats up. Yeah, and that's how, it becomes an oven. But the water is changed in that way. And you can test, how it's changed by doing a little experiment. If you microwave some water and let it cool and start watering your plants with it, those plants are going to die. Plants will start to be misshapen and then they'll die because.
So just for I know this is kind of like a practical application to use or to use as a way to prove something. But how long? I mean, you've probably done it. How long would it take roughly that if you use that water, that microwave water? How long would it take to kill just a small plot plant or a big plot plant, for example? Whatever demonstration you can give us.
The best way to do it is plant 2 seeds, in 2 pots, right? And water one with regular water, water the other one with microwaved water, and watch how they grow. And you'll find that the one that's been watered with normal water grows normally, and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, that's right, because radiation we're talking about, which is artificial, it's man-made, right?
Yeah.
So generally what we're talking about, going back to the essence, we're talking about a lot of stuff to do with man-made disasters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really the epicenter of all of these problems. They're creating this kind of chaos in a way that a lot of people don't really understand around certain things until things really happen or start to get to a boil, and then our backs are against the wall, and some people go, "Oh, this is what's happening now."
Right. Well, this is the thing. Now if you understand how the microwave works, by a particular frequency gets absorbed by hydrogen in water molecules, and so that the water gets subtly altered, so it's no longer ordinary water, and that altered water is now toxic to the plant cells and animal cells as well, and so that's what affects the plants as they grow.
So are you correlating the smart systems? Okay.
I'm just about to go back to 5G right now and to give you the parallel. The parallel there is that 60 gigahertz affects oxygen in the same way. So oxygen is 2 oxygen atoms together, O2. Yeah. So when 60 gigahertz comes into contact with an oxygen molecule, right? It alters the molecular bonds between these two oxygen atoms. It might even break them. I don't know. I don't have specifics, but it alters the oxygen so much so that your hemoglobin in your blood can no longer grab hold of that oxygen. So, when you breathe in, your lungs swap carbon dioxide for oxygen, and the hemoglobin grabs hold of the oxygen, lets go of the carbon dioxide, and then sort of transports that oxygen to the rest of your cells. But now, with this altered oxygen, your hemoglobin can't grab hold of it, so you essentially start to suffocate. So when you get exposed directly to this 5G 60 gigahertz, right, and this is what people were seeing at the beginning of the Wuhan thing, people were falling over in the street suddenly. They're walking along and they'll just collapse in the street and die.
So you think there's a big cover-up right there?
Well, yes. This isn't a viral infection, right? Because there's no viral infection in the world that will make you collapse and die in the street. So essentially, there's also a doctor who is speaking about the people he's treating with this COVID-19, and he's saying it's not a viral infection. It's I've been doing this for 30 years or whatever it was. I've been doing this for 30 odd years. This is not a viral infection. This looks more like altitude sickness. People, being dropped off on the top of Mount Everest and not having enough air to breathe. So, he doesn't know, he didn't know it, but he's actually confirming this idea that this 5G is altering the oxygen so that people can't breathe it. So essentially it gives you, if you don't keel over and die from asphyxiation, it gives you flu-like symptoms. So you start coughing, because the body will assume that you're breathing in bad air, and you'll start coughing to try and get rid of it. And it's a dry cough. It's not like any other kind of infection type cough where you create phlegm. It's a dry cough, and you just get these flu-like symptoms. So Wuhan switched on its 5G, and all of a sudden you get these symptoms. And then they come along and say, oh, it's a coronavirus. Yeah. And I think there's some programming going on, because there were two books, one by Dean Koontz called The Eyes of Darkness, that literally laid out this idea that, yes, there's going to be a pandemic, and it's going to start in Wuhan, and this virus, this coronavirus.
Yeah, and that book came out in 1984, if I recollect.
I think it was 81, first of all, and then it was reprinted.
Right.
So yes, I think they were, again, that's a bit of subtle subliminal programming. That yes, it's a virus that's coming, but no, it wasn't a virus.
So you're saying then, because I know it's kind of like I said, there's different theories going on out there. Okay, and there's a whole range of theories from the good to the wonderful to the the far fetched. You know what I'm saying? But some people say it's all conspiracy and it's conspiratorial. Okay, to begin with, anyway, right? And we can look at all of that stuff, right? So, going back to the how do we sort of correlate some of this stuff that's happening? Because people, at first there was a lot of pictures maybe out there that, because let me just stop there, right? Just look at China for a second, right? We know China is a very secretive country. It's difficult to get information out of that country or out of the Chinese Communist Party, okay? And I think there's a difference between the party and the people, right? And, what I'm seeing is that obviously there's a love-hate relationship between China and the United States of America, right?
No, there isn't, but
on the let's say on the normal level, on the you know, behind the scenes, we know they're all collaborating, right? But let's say what they're giving us, right? The impression, or what it appears to be, that they're all fighting each other and all of this stuff, okay? Right? And it's this trade war and all of that stuff, okay? We know that China's buying up half the world and all of that stuff, right? And including America, right? But, you know, and parts of Africa and the Caribbean and whatever. And everyone's complaining about them, right? But obviously we know on certain levels that behind the scenes they're being used as part of the plan to whatever, yeah? To create this new world order agenda, whatever, right? 21 agenda 2030 or whatever, yeah? So there's a, you see the pictures that, you see people's only going by what they've been given, right? There's a big cover up, right? Everybody's secretive that knows the information. The people that know what's really going on or actually perpetuating this whole thing, yeah? They know what's going on, and it's on a need to know basis, okay? So most people's not getting that information, right? So what you're saying is that the media's misrepresenting the whole thing, right? And I think you were explaining the reasons why they did that earlier about all this programming and stuff like that. Okay, now they feed the mass populace into an illusion, right, and get them sucked into that vacuum, right? So your explanation is that they switched on this whole this new system called 5G, which really is radiation. It's just radio frequency radiation or electromagnetic wave, but it's souped up, right? It's gone into the spectrum, a higher spectrum range, okay? A lot of people don't understand the millimeter waves thing. They don't understand the concepts of frequency. They don't understand it's invisible. You can't see it, right? And they don't understand the physics and the science that goes beyond what they've been. They're not being educated. Do you know what I'm saying? So we've got this problem and issue why a lot of people are speculating, and they got good reason to do that. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. If you find that Chinese government's not saying anything, the US government's not saying, no one's not saying anything. No one's not investigating anything. You know what I'm saying? We just respond. Everyone's just saying, oh, you've got to respond to this, you've got to respond to that, follow orders, commands, and obey instructions, right? And they got us like sheeps and things like that, like cattle, right? So explain how, because the thing is, I've tried to look at the correlation, right, with this whole rollout, and it does make sense. It does, in some ways it does, and there are other people have identified it, okay? The only snag I got, South Korea was one of the first ones to kind of roll it out in a way, yeah? Or one of the countries that rolled it out, yeah? And then I'm going to just give you just a few little things to think about, right? Iran's got a lot of cases, or when I say a lot of cases, they pump everything up, okay? But they, according to their stats, okay, on recoveries, deaths, and how many cases and stuff like that, it runs in the top, 10 bracket. But they never, I think they only just recently switched on 5G. And then Taiwan. So you've got South Korea, Iran, and Taiwan. There's some anomalies there with those three countries. And, what does make sense is that a lot of the poor countries don't have the infrastructure. They don't have 5G infrastructure in place, and they have less cases. You know what I'm saying? So the countries that do have a lot of cases are those like around China, Japan, and all of these Southeast Asian countries, and the Western countries, right? Iran, not even Russia, right? Iran, not even Russia. Obviously, the United States blowing up. But you got like Africa, very minimal. I think the Caribbean, very minimal. And in Europe, is quite reasonably, how it is. And America, like I said. So how do you look at that whole thing, that whole scenario there? Because, how do we correlate all that?
Well, actually, somebody actually found this. You can go, and I can't remember the website. It's one of those websites where you can test the speed of your internet connection. Okay, speedtest.net or something like that. And one of the options is to show 5G coverage.
Yeah.
And you can go and see the map of 5G coverage. And that map directly correlates with all the large outbreaks of this so-called coronavirus. Okay, so one of the other places that was rolled out, where 5G was rolled out, was Italy. So literally straight after the Wuhan thing kicked off, then next was Italy, and it directly correlates with when Italy switched on its 5G. Yeah. So again, you can go to this SpeedNet. I can't remember the name of it, but it's one of those places, and one of the options is, and again, you can look at their map of 5G coverage, see where the hotspots are, and you'll be able to correlate them with all the coronavirus hotspots. And as you said, Africa, there's none there. The Caribbean, none there. So yeah, it's a direct correlation with.
I did hear that Nigeria. I did hear Nigeria. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure that Nigeria maybe, possibly. I'm not sure. Yeah, possibly may have it, but it's just speculation.
Right. Well, I'd have to go back and have a look at that on that rollout map. But the interesting thing is during this lockdown, when most people are at home and only essential services were out and about, one of the things that was happening was that 5G was being rolled out like crazy. They're out there. So why is 5G installation considered an essential service? Yeah, it's they're doing it while everybody is locked away. They're doing it while nobody can is watching them. Basically, they're installing them in schools when the parents have already voiced their complaints against 5G. They're doing it. They're installing it anyway while nobody's at the school. And there have been, again, citizen journalists going over to the schools and going, what are you doing? And some of them are even saying, yeah, we're just putting 5G in,
Wow.
And others are saying that there was one where there were these people approached, and there were two cops with them. And, they would not answer any questions. And even when they were asked, are you putting in 5G? Right? All of a sudden their body language changed, and you knew that they were completely uncomfortable with it, and it was obvious. They put in 5G and they didn't want anyone to know about it. Yeah.
So
5G is being rolled out while everybody's locked away. Yeah. There's a reason for that, because it's going to form the basis of the next part of the agenda, which is basically putting everybody on the Internet of Things.
Yes.
So, if everybody gets the chip, which is the other thing they're angling for, it means that that chip will have like an IP address, and so you become a node on the Internet of Things, which means you can be tracked, traced, and linked to anything that you've ever done, anything you've ever come into contact with, anything you've ever bought or sold or even touched. Yeah. It will be tracked, traced, and recorded.
Well, it's interesting that you should go back to the vaccines, okay? Because I'm looking at stuff where we got various... everybody's involved in this. It's surprising how many people's involved in this, how many organisations and institutions involved, and governments, the top-level governments are well aware of what's going on, but they're just pretending that they don't know what's going on. They're not informing the people, okay, because they're part of the agenda, right? But it looks to me like they're pitching and marketing and campaigning to sell a product, which is a vaccine to immunize everybody on this planet Earth, literally everybody, right? And, we can talk about, to me, the way I'm looking at it, right, Brother Dave, right? I think I'm like you. I think we've got something in common, that we rather deal with everything that's natural, right? Just deal with the natural laws of nature. The universal natural laws of nature is the highest laws of the planet Earth, okay, for instance, right? And that you know, we understand that only the natural foods and elements is going to be the foods that's going to supplement to help to give us to maintain our body in healthy condition, right? So it makes me wonder, why are they pushing these chemicals? These chemical pushers are like drug pushers, right? These big lobby corporationists, globalists, elitists type of mentality, right? Which is quite prevalent in a lot of different industries, okay? It's just bully boy tactics. If we can talk about the different examples, for examples, like the GMOs, right? Monsanto, how they pushed that. And people warned them, people's been warning them about the effects of GMOs and the seeds and the Roundup and all of this, the stuff that goes with it, because everything's chemical. So explain to me, why is it everything has to be so toxic? Everything's about toxicity. We live in a toxic environment. The food, the water, everything in the environment is propagating the most toxism, right? And you know, I think a lot of people are waking up to this idea that that's all you can do with people is just pump them up with chemicals. That's the best you lot can do. After how many years? A couple of hundred of years, the same old spin they're giving us, okay? Based on a barbaric type of science. You know, it's a very crude type of science, because if you go back to the early 19th century or the late 18th century and all of this stuff, and you look at the medical industry and the laws and practices, then there weren't no laws or health and safety regulations and stuff like that.
Well, I did mention that you know, in 1910 the Rockefeller Foundation basically took over the medical industry. They created the medical industry, and the reason why the Rockefellers did that, you know, on the surface anyway, the reason why is because the Rockefeller family had already cornered the oil market. They owned Standard Oil. Yeah. Okay, they cornered the oil market, and from the oil industry, what was spawned from that was the chemical industry. So petrochemicals came from the oil industry,
right?
Yeah? And pharmaceuticals came out of the chemical industry.
Right.
So the Rockefeller Foundation or family cornered the market in the petrochemical and then you know, by extension the pharmaceutical industry. So that was on the surface. That, you know, that's why, you know, we're still.
So that's the model that everyone's really subscribing to and practicing, which is really very destructive to our health and well-being. Because there's no science to it. Because I'm looking at it, right? All right, I'm a novice. I'm not a scientist by any stretch of imagination. I don't understand the whole medical industry, biology, and you know, chemistry and all of that stuff, right? But you know, I like to consider myself, and I'd like to look at people like we're social scientists. We just use common intelligence. Okay, you can study these things, you can read these things, and you can learn and develop around getting on some ideas around these things. I know some of the things can be very, very complicated, right? But it's good that we can share information to get to learn how to understand things. You know what I'm saying? Because these people are fooling us left, right, and centre, bruv. They're pulling the wool over our eyes. And the mass majority of people are pushing to this idea that some vaccine is going to cure you, right? But look, is there any evidence that these vaccines, which are chemicalized, there's nothing natural about them, your biological system is a very complicated system, and they're vaccinating from you when you're a baby? I've looking at the information. I looked at Edward Jenner, who was supposed to be the pioneer of all these vaccines, and that model, to me, which is barbaric, and they didn't do no testing, there weren't no regulations. To me, I don't know how anyone could say this thing works.
I have to just say that in my book, I do a whole section about vaccines and stuff, and I include a set of charts that appeared in the book, and the name escapes me. But it's a set of charts that was correlated about diseases and when the vaccines were introduced. So you can see in each of these charts the different diseases, the progression of number of deaths over time, and what you find is there's a sharp rise of deaths, and then a gentle kind of sloping curve down as the disease kind of fades away. Okay, and in every case, the vaccine was introduced as the disease was declining naturally. Yeah. So every time the disease hits its peak, it starts declining, and at the end of the decline, they introduce the vaccine, and they take credit for the natural decline of the disease. So never at any time in history has any vaccine been directly attributable to the decline of any disease at any time in history.
Because the way they're punting it, okay, they're punting it saying that they want to give people these vaccines, these immunizations. They use the word immunization, okay, for everything, right? To counteract every type of probable diseases that they want to get in their heads, right? Or they perceive is the disease, right? But it's like how far are they going to take this thing? Because you find that they're just going to pump you more and more chemicals, right? They're just finding more and more diseases. They're making more and more diseases themselves. We know that they're making viruses or diseases or whatever they're bacteria. They're manipulating genome engineering these things, okay? Right, where they're creating their own diseases. Do you get what I'm saying? And like you said, they're using it to vaccinate people, and that's how they get the actual disease, right?
Yep.
And then, like, this has been going on for decades, right?
Yep.
And even this week, I think this week is the World Health Organization, what they called Immunization Week. They've actually got a European one. They've got a European Immunization Week, which is between the 24th of April to the 30th, okay? So we're right in the crux of it, right? And the idea of this is to promote their vaccines. So they've got the World Immunization Week as well, right? So they've got two things going on. There's one for Europe. I don't know why it's separated. You know what I mean? But what I found, Dave, okay, if you look on the World Health Organization's website, right? For Africa, I'm putting Africa in the picture now, because I see they abuse what they do, what they've been doing, and they continue to do. And these leaders, they're allowing it to do it. Okay, I don't think they've got any brains in their heads. Okay, to tell me a country that's got so much natural stuff in abundance. Okay, why would you vaccinate your babies with chemicals? Why would you vaccinate your children with chemicals and you don't even know what those chemicals are? You don't know the side effects. And every drug, every chemical vaccination has side effects, right? So, they're pumping out these vaccines. For 7 years, they had these, I didn't even know this, right? For 7 years, right, they had these weeks for, they always have a week for everything nowadays, right? So they've got a week for vaccinations. They've had that in Africa for 7 years. And I've seen the World Health Organization, right? They come out of the United Nations in 1948, okay? They've become bigger and bigger and bigger and more glorified, okay? Right? They reckon they've been the gods on the planet Earth when it comes to the medical industry, right? And they set up their bases. They've got 6 regions, 150 bases all around the world, right? And they got their headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, right? Now, these people that talk about these vaccines, yeah, do they ever use these vaccine trials on themselves or their children, going back as far as you want to go back. Because this is what's happening. Because when you look at in the 19th century, they had a law out that mandatory vaccines were mandated in 1821, right? And obviously, you know, most people didn't have a lot of rights then, okay? They got railroaded into that, right? So they're still using that model and this idea around vaccines, and it's been promoted by all these leaders all around the world as some sort of miracle cure. It's insane. It's total madness.
Right. Well, you talked about the WHO, the World Health Organization. You think it's an independent body, part of the United Nations? No, it's a private organization. It was funded by two people, or mainly funded by two entities. One was the United States government, and the other was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And just recently, the US government pulled out its funding. So the only one who's really funding the United World Health Organization is Bill and Melinda Gates. Yeah. So literally, Bill and Melinda Gates owns that organization, and it's pushing this world vaccination program. Now, we'll mention the Georgia Guidestones, where it says maintain humanity at 500 million. You know, maintain the population at 500 million.
Yeah.
Well, I'm currently just before you called me, I was working on another video, and I just picked up a video from of Bill Gates speaking, and it mentions about before we go back to normal, we're going to have to vaccinate everybody on Earth, basically, to make sure that we eradicate this disease, right? And he said, we should be able to have 7 billion doses of it, right? So the interesting thing about that is that he said 7 billion doses. Well, there's 7.5 billion people on Earth, yeah? So 7.5 billion minus 500 million is 7 billion. So he's talking about what the Georgia Guidestones were laying out, yeah? Because they want to get rid of 7 billion people. And Mr. Gates has just come out and said, I want to give 7 billion people this vaccine. So I wonder what this vaccine is really for.
Right, so that's one of the biggest conspiracies that's floating around. And it's interesting that you say that. I want you to carry on talking, okay? But I just wanted to just put that out because what you find is that they're pushing and pumping this whole thing. They're campaigning to sell a product.
Okay, just nearly lost the train of thought. Hold on a second. Oh yeah. Okay, so depopulation is the ultimate goal of this agenda. That's behind it all. Behind the cashless society, behind the microchip, behind the vaccinations. Right, the ultimate goal is depopulation. Now, what is interesting is that.
But explain to people what is depopulation. Just quickly.
It's what it sounds like. Get rid of 7 billion people.
Is that part of eugenics then?
That's what the Georgia Guidestone says. Maintain the human population at 500 million. That's it. That's their first commandment on their Georgia Guidestone.
Right. Well, go on.
That means they have to exterminate 7 billion of us. Okay. So I was going to say that if you go onto YouTube, right, and you type in population crisis and then just type in any European country, any Western country, like Australia, America, Canada, you know, and even China, Japan, Korea, yeah. Just put those countries in after population crisis in, and you'll find that all of these countries, all of them, are in population decline, drastic population decline, yeah. So much so that they've already passed the point of no return. That means that their population has already gone extinct. It's just that the numbers haven't caught up with reality yet. It's mathematically impossible for them to come back again, right? So if all these Western countries and the Asian countries are all, already extinct, then who is being depopulated? You'll find it's one people, yeah? And those people are, dark or brown-skinned people. Okay?
So basically,
and they're the ones.
Yeah, because recently, I don't want to stay away from what you're talking about, because recently they're trying to make black people the face of COVID-19.
That's true. That's the beginning of that. The beginning of that narrative has already started. The first rumblings of that narrative have already come out.
Yeah.
I think the first I heard of it was that there's an inordinate amount of doctors, black doctors, who seem to be getting this COVID-19.
That's right, and
compared to white doctors.
yeah, that's right, and government's doing an inquiry. Actually, they announced that last week. That was raised, like you said, by some of the doctors or nurses working in the medical industry or National Health Service or whatever, and they've noticed that there was something very suspicious or odd or whatever, that they raised that alarm. But it's kind of a. I don't know if we're going to have time to actually go over that right now, but we have to look at the black experience or the black African experience and how we fit into that agenda, like you said, right? And then, this whole thing around this debacle charade with these two French doctors, these so-called scientists, talking about on national TV in France about going to Africa to do the trials, okay? But then beyond to that, okay, when I read an article about the WHO organization, they already came out with a trial. They already had a trial that they was already doing called Solidarity in Africa already, before they even came on TV and talk about that. And yet the WHO organized, what's his name, the general director, Tedros, whatever his name is, okay, from Eritrea or Ethiopia, where he's, in Africa, a black man, supposedly, saying that he's like days later after these two French scientists came out with all that stuff, that he wanted to castrate them. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of when you look at it, he's right in the mix of it. He's right in the crux of everything. He's making out like he doesn't know what's going on. He's all part of it. He's initiating already trials in Africa already. Do you know what I'm saying? So what are they talking about? It's amazing. One other thing, yeah, talking about the depopulation. Let me just quote you on that. This is what Bill Gates quoted on saying, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on how new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we lower that by perhaps 10 to 15%. Now, he said that quoted from his own very lips in 2015. Now, mark you, he started up this Melinda, I call it the Hell Gates Foundation anyway, yeah, 20 years ago, right? He's a Microsoft CEO, where I think he's taken a step back now from Microsoft. I don't think he just advises now. But now he's got this, his own new institution, or his institution, where he's studying diseases and viruses and all of this stuff, okay? And is he going to be like, I see a lot of people, he's getting a lot of backlash and all of this stuff, okay, from some of his own people that have been following him, okay, comments and all of that stuff, okay? So all the main suspects are there. I think, like I said, the rabbit is out of the hat. How do you think all of this stuff is going to really pan out? And bear in mind, now you can still. I know I've got a few minutes with you, but I'm just saying that there's about 6 minutes coming up to the hour.
Well, this turns out to be a Bill Gates production. This whole thing, because when you start looking into it, you find that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is throwing money in all directions to bring this production to life. So, you know, they were funding this Event 201 that simulated the whole thing, that, you know, was a dry run for this whole thing. They have funded the Johns Hopkins University, who are also involved in Event 201, and who are now the public face of the actual numbers. So,
yes.
You know, whenever you go and find out how many people are dying, you know, you get the figures from Johns Hopkins University.
That's right.
So, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you know, for this country, basically funded, was it Chris Whitty, whatever the name of the guy, the health chief, the one who's making a pronouncement for the government now. Is it Chris Whitty? I can't remember his name. But,
yeah, well, that bald-headed figure that does the announcements every 5 o'clock in the evening or 6 o'clock. I don't know. I don't watch it anyway.
Right, that guy. I think he got something like 51 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Wow, really?
His project. Yes. So you know, you can imagine that you might be a little beholden to the Gates Foundation. Yeah. So the BBC got money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So that's why, you know, he can have airtime on the BBC whenever he wants. Yeah.
I heard they're financing at least half a dozen institutions doing research on getting the next vaccine.
Yes, you know, his money is going into so supposedly developing the vaccine, which is already developed.
It's already developed because we've seen the patent for that.
Yeah,
it's 47 pages. Have you seen it?
Yep, and also, you know, they fund the Pirbright Institute, which you know patented the coronavirus, this particular strain. Right, a couple of years ago, I can't remember the actual date, but they actually patented the actual virus already. So in every aspect of this wag the dog scenario, right, you've got Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funding all of it. So I'm telling you, it's a Bill and Melinda Gates production, you know, for television. And the world is buying it.
And we're the spectators watching.
Bill Gates does not have any medical qualifications whatsoever. Yeah. He's never tested any of these viruses, you know, for safety. He's currently under investigation, or he's dodging trial in India.
That's right.
For the murder of you know, Indian girls who got a vaccine from them. He's been caught giving women in, I think it's Kenya, vaccines that have a sterilization agent in them. And, you know, you can bet all of these vaccines have got a sterilization agent in them. Wow. And this is why he says, you know, when he, you know, the quote you gave a little while ago was only one of many that he said. And, you know, he always says, you know, we're saving lives and reducing the population. Well, that's a contradiction right there. How can you save lives and reduce the population? Well, if you put a sterilization agent in the thing that's supposedly saving lives, well, when he says saving lives, he means getting rid of symptoms. That's it. So it gives them a vaccine that will get rid of some symptoms, but as a side effect, it makes them sterile. So that's how, you know, he's telling the truth, you know, saving lives, or, well, not quite telling the truth about that, but he's saving lives and reducing the population.
Wow. Damaging. I've got a few seconds coming up to the hour. and we're literally about 40 seconds interlude. I mean, if you could just stop, listen to the interlude for 6 seconds, or get a drink, and maybe just wrap up in just 10 minutes, if that's all right.
Okay.
If that's okay. Because I want you to talk about you've got so much things to talk about that you touched on, right? It's so vital for us to understand, because it's deadly serious out there. You know what I'm saying? And people need to know what's actually happening. So yeah, I'm really appreciate you taking the time. And all right, I just want people to keep it locked in.
For Africans here, it's not healthy for us to stay here all winter. That's a real problem for us because we need intense sunlight all of the time. And the darker you are, the more vulnerable you are by staying in dim areas of the country and not getting adequate exposure. So I have found ever since I healed myself of cancer in '86 that I cannot stay here through the winter. I actually feel the strain and I feel the dipping into my reserves of energy. So I just go to the tropics where I was indigenously born and created to be and get sunlight.
Original. 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 Original.
Jumbo Tep, we're back again, Brother Dave, here on Ferrity Radio, www.ferrity Radio, live here in sunny South London. And where are you from in your area? Okay, but I got a couple of texts, right, Dave? For Brother Dave, people are tuning in. So far, Brother Leon said, great show. I think there's quite a few texts there. He says, a great show, Sayshara. Can you ask your guest what does he think about the end game of this lockdown? And what did he think about Bill Gates and his vaccine agenda? And I think we kind of touched on that already. But you also go on to say, also, how long does your guest think this lockdown will continue for? And it's not a pandemic, it's in fact a plandemic. Yeah, I get that. And he says, great show. I've got one here from 313. I have a comment, not a question. Fantastic topic and very well explained. Well done. That's from 31. Sorry, let me see if I can get that right. 313. Thanks, 313. Much appreciated, Leon. Thanks very much. I think I've got another text here from Amazon. Oh, no, that's not right. It says, how much does it cost to get a professional? It's got nothing to do with it. All right, so yeah, that's it, right? Thanks. Yeah, so so much to say, so much things to talk about. And I think that you've given a really good view and perspective and, you know, thought process around so many different things going on here. We were just kind of tying up this whole thing to do with Africa, I think it was. This whole debacle that's going on with China and how they're demonizing black people, trying to make them the face of COVID-19, etc., etc. There's a what you call you got these political engagements, I reckon, with some of the countries in Africa, but to me, they're not really coming together and making a strong statement. They're not really making any strong demands from the Chinese government or anybody. It's just, you know, what do you think about all that?
That's a bit of a vague question. Think about all that. What specifically?
Well, the way that the relationship between China and Africa has been ongoing for some times. When you talk about how China is not just going around in Africa, but they're all over the place. They're all over the place. But in terms of specifically talking about Africa, and I've seen a lot of stuff that's going on with the Chinese in Africa, atrocious behavior towards various individual groups, robbing, stealing, and all kinds of stuff going on there. You get what I'm saying? We don't even know the half of it, right? And a lot of these governments turn a blind eye to a lot of different stuff out there, right? We know that China's pouring billions and billions of money, yen, whatever it is, into Africa to do all kinds of things, right? Infrastructure building, all kinds of plans there, right?
So,
go on.
Okay,
Go
okay,
on.
I guess it. I get. Well, China wants to get in on the colonial action. Yeah, they missed it the first time round. They're trying to get into it this time. Same kind of model. Make massive loans to African countries. Don't really give them very much for those loans. And then when they can't pay them back, take resources. That's the standard model. So one of the things about China, though, is that their one child per family policy that's basically running for about 20 years, 25 years or something, coupled with their cultural bias towards having boys, because most of China is kind of agrarian, so there was always a benefit to having boys rather than girls. So put those two things together. Now you've got a generation that's kind of coming of age, where there's many more men than women in China. There are millions of men who will never have a girlfriend, never ever get married, because there simply aren't enough women in China.
Wow.
And so part of their agenda is literally they're going out into other countries and mixing with well, mainly African and Caribbean countries. And that's it. So they'll get a new crop of Chinese or
mixed heritage.
So they're mixed heritage, but they'll identify as Chinese through the father. So then they'll soon breed out the black again, like they've done before. So that's one of the agendas there. But as I said, as we kind of touched on, there is the startings of this narrative of making black people the plague carriers. Now there are disturbing reports, and they've not been verified, but there are disturbing reports that black people are starting to be, let's say, killed, going into hospital,
right?
And,
is that
not coming out again?
Yeah, because I suspect. I'll be honest with you. I don't really trust a lot of these industries anyway, right? The medical industry, I don't trust the medical industry. You know that there's malpractices in a lot of these medical industries, right? National service, whatever you want to call it, right? We can talk about that, right? The thing is, there is a lot of issues, right? We know also that they do programs. They got programs, weekly programs, where they got killer doctors and all of this stuff, right? So, is there an hidden agenda? We can't see it, but is there? I mean, to me, this has always been ongoing, I think, but it's been very, very subtle, or it's done very, very covertly. I think they've always been doing it, right? Because you touched on about the sterilization thing, right? We know about the Tuskegee syphilis experiments. We know about Ebola. We know about AIDS and all of this stuff, okay? And even all of the diseases that they come out with, H1N1, SARS, and MERS, and all of these diseases, all man-made diseases.
Yep.
Right? And we know that it's all chemical driven. It's all chemical stuff. It's not gonna really work, right? But they're gonna push it, and I think going back to what you're saying about the sterilization of women, the black women as well. I think that's been ongoing even in Western countries over here, like in this country. I think it's been a lot of things are going on. And I think one of the things I've highlighted in reference to that, in relation to that, is that there should be more independent autopsies or medical examinations. I think recently they came out with an emergency law where they can only one doctor has to certify your death certificate or your death, and then put on the death certificate wherever they want to put on the death certificate. So how do you know what they're telling you that you died of is real or true? How do you know they're not taking your organs? How do you know they're not taking your blood? How do you know they're not taking your melanin? You know what I'm saying? So I've seen a lot of different things over the years through actually having to do my own research on certain topics and subjects and stuff like that, where I've had to go into things I didn't really want to get involved in. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen these things, these patterns of behavior that's synonymous, and it just goes on. A lot of people don't see it and not aware of it. It's poisoning people, deliberately going out their way to poison people.
Yeah, that's true.
And cause the most harms. Women not able to have babies and all this kind of stuff. It's a long list of stuff. There's really nefarious, atrocious, sinister behaviors that's going on, and it ties up with what's going on today. And like I said, this country, this government, the United Kingdom's government, I call them Queen government. Yeah, they saying they're going to have an inquiry into this black, this whole thing around the disproportionality of black people dying, right? And so, is it possible? It's a lot of the stuff they're deliberately inducing. Because I saw something on social media. So I shouldn't even say social media. Stuff that somebody sent information out there saying this is what's happened to my dad. They're killing him, and they pumped him with morphine. And they clearly said they done the sister and the brother was on the phone trying to find out what's going on and blah blah blah. Because now you can't even go and see your family, wherever they are. If if they're in a bad state, if they're in a state or whatever, it's really appalling. Because I don't know what to say, brother. I'm telling you. I know I've said a lot of stuff, okay, but just to conclude on how we're going to have to deal with this thing, really, because like I said, unless we have independent autopsies, independent medical examiners, we'll never know what people's going to die of. They're telling people that you died with COVID-19 and not of COVID-19, and they're conflating the figures and they're convoluting the figures. I can see that myself. I hear what people are saying out there, right? So it's very confusing for people to know exactly what's going on. And one other thing, if you look at the stats, like you just mentioned a while ago about the recovery, deaths, and how many cases and all that, this country has got a dash when it comes to saying how many people recovered. I think there's a dash for that. That you just don't know. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of deception going on. A lot of deception going on.
Yep, indeed. Yep. I don't know where to start with that.
No, it's a lot of stuff. This is what I'm saying. There's a lot of stuff to go through. But what I want to say to you is that just kind of look at where we are. Look at black people in this country then, right? Because I think we touched on what's going on in Africa and in Jamaica. We haven't really touched on America, right? But what's actually taking place here, you just highlighted some things there. I've correlated what you just said there. I've seen testimony of it. What do you think?
I would basically advise any of our people, right, not to go to hospital. You know, what you were describing earlier on about, people being starved and dehydrated. It's something called the Liverpool Care Pathway. So essentially, if somebody, like an old person, goes into hospital and hasn't got anybody who's visiting them regularly, what will happen is they will put them on morphine, and then while they're out of it, they will withhold, food and water, and they basically starve and dehydrate to death while on morphine.
Wow.
So we're hearing, and again, there's not a lot of actual verification here, but you're hearing reports of black people going into hospital with let's say pneumonia, and pneumonia isn't like a death sentence, but people go in for pneumonia and essentially they don't come out of hospital again. They die of complications or something. Now, again, it's difficult to get independent verification. And at this point, it could be all natural. But I seem to be hearing a lot of an inordinate number of black people this is happening to. But until we get more information, we can't be sure that this is the undercover culling that's going on.
I agree with you.
My advice is there are natural ways to deal with the symptoms of a cold or flu. I would explore those first. Basically, clean water. If you can get a water distiller, get one. So you're drinking clean water. As you said earlier, our air is poisoned, our water's poisoned, our food's poisoned. The clothes you're wearing, contain poisons that leach into your skin. We're surrounded by poisons. The human body is actually perfect. It's just struggling under the amount of toxicity we're swimming in.
That's right.
So, if you can get a water distiller, get one and drink clean water. If you change your diet away from all the toxic things that we've come to, expect that we can eat, and go to eating fruit. Yeah, even though the fruit is sometimes laden with pesticides and other things. Well, it's better than anything else that's out there. Yeah, it's better than any of the processed stuff. It's better than eating meat. Okay, so if you can change your diet to fruit, it's the least damaging thing you can put in your body. Also, start fasting. So take at least 2 days out of the week and don't eat at all on those days. Just drink. So just drink distilled water. There's another thing you can do, but it's probably a bit too much for your listeners without a bit of prior warning and explanation. But yes, the last thing I'd say is to keep a positive mind. Yeah, because all disease starts in the mind. So while you're in this lockdown, there's the lockdown itself is a stressor. Yeah, it's causing stress. And it's a stress that isn't going to be relieved by contact with other humans, which is going to add to that stress. So we're seeing secondary effects simply from the lockdown itself. So you've got to do your best to eliminate stress. So go outside, talk to people. Don't let this fake pandemic thing, which isn't a pandemic, it's no more serious, or let's put it another way, it's less serious than the seasonal flu that happens every year. Yeah, so it's not a pandemic, it's not even an epidemic. Yeah, it's less serious than the seasonal flu that happens every year. Yet we don't get this this knee-jerk overreaction every single year from the seasonal flu.
Yeah,
so that's all I'll say. Just don't be in fear of this. Don't follow the the orders of this government. Governments aren't your bosses. They're not the masters. They are the servants. Yeah, they don't tell you what to do, right? Because they can't tell you what to do, because governments were created by us, so they're our servants. Yeah, they might be able to advise us what they think we should do, but they cannot tell us what to do. Acts and statutes that they create aren't law. They're not law. They can become law if you go along with them, but intrinsically they are not law. Yeah. So nobody can tell you can't move around. They can't tell you that you can't leave your house. Yeah. They can pretend that they can tell you that, and they can make lots of noise and threaten you and stuff, but they can't do that. Just simply can't. So don't be afraid. Just live your life as you would normally live your life. Don't let it change you, and don't let it stress you.
Also, good advice that you gave there. Really good advice, because people need that. And you're right. You have to keep your spirit up. You keep your mind fit and healthy. I suppose people are struggling with that if they're not used to, if people's isolated and all of this stuff. Okay. What about just touch on those people you touched on the whole thing around radiation, okay, or electromagnetic waves. I think nowadays you can't even say 5G, they want to ban you. I think that certain place on YouTube, they're banning people from saying 5G, right? So what do you give around that in terms of any advice for those people, if you know anything?
As I say, 5G is being sort of rolled out everywhere. People are, going, they went into lockdown and they've popped their head out the door and found a 5G tower at the end of their street where it wasn't there before. There's not an awful lot you can do apart from...
Well, some people have been doing something. They've pulled down at least 50 of those masks, and the government's been complaining about it. So that's got the government some attention, but it's not in the right form, because what I think the government's not doing is actually debating it. And that's the problem that I think a lot of people's having. They won't even debate it.
Sorry, you've gone really muffled again.
Yeah, no, I was saying that the government are not debating anything to do with the rollout.
No, they're not saying anything about 5G. They're literally, and you can find a video on YouTube. A senator is asking the representative of ones putting 5G up, has this been tested? Has it been tested? And they're saying, actually, no, we haven't tested it.
No, can you validate that? Because a lot of people not getting that. I think it's not being validated. It's not being tested or anything like that.
It goes. Yeah, it's on. You can find it on YouTube. A senator is asking somebody about 5G, and
right, you've gone. All right, so I don't know where what's happened, but he's just logged off for some reason. I'm gonna see if I can get Brother Dave back. Other than that, I want to thank Dave for taking his time and energy for being here, being on Prosperity Radio here on a Sunday afternoon. And I'll see if I can get him back, alright? But yeah, I've got probably just another less than 40 minutes left. Then I'll be looking to
The
wind
mobile
down.
number you've called is currently unavailable.
Alright, so he's gone. Alright, so yeah, maybe next time we'll get to Dave to elaborate a bit more around this whole thing to do with the 5G rollout, RFR, and yeah, for those people who's locked in, you can go to www.dave. Let me see if I can get this. Good afternoon, good day, Jambo or Tepi Salama.
Hotep Sayshara, it's
Berchak,
Berchak.
what's happening? You alright?
Yeah, as I was saying, I had a comment on this. That Dave's knowledge, I don't know if he's from Australia or not, but his knowledge is so much, brother. Dave's knowledge is so much that it's too deep. It's too much to comment on. You know, he's much more advanced than I am. And, you know, but what I was saying is that eventually we're going to have to face the music soon. Because nobody, I've been saying this from 2013 onwards, that people haven't risen up. People don't even know what is going on out here. You know, people don't, like, they're just isolated. Ever since, it started with how they did it, with socializing, unsociable. Years ago, say, sure, in your time, to cut a long story short, you remember when the uncles, the dads, and all that used to eat together, used to watch TV together, and they used to be sociable together. That's what happened. So what did? They isolated that. They isolated other things as well, fear. And then what did they isolate? What did they do? Internet, technology, games, provoking people's heads, playing with people's heads with higher frequency. That's what they did, didn't they? And what's happened now? People have now started to become scared of each other, touching with each other now. Because the man said to me, 2 meters away, please. You know? And I've got very, very upset. So
Don't be
this
upset.
is coming on. No, it's because of this. People have become so paranoid now. Ever since, and I told on episode show, after this curfew, way after this, they're going to make England even a much worse state. They're going to make this country like India. Because everyone's for themselves.
What's wrong with India?
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you
what's up? Let me stop you there for a second. What is wrong with India? I know this, you know. What do you think was wrong with India? Why you say that?
Let me tell you this for now. Let me tell you this. What's wrong with India? I'll tell you. Because what I've heard. If a person like me is disabled, is on the gym and laughing to himself and all that, apparently, allegedly, or now that they say it's been proven, they call the emergency services, not the police. They call the emergency doctors, they tie your hands behind your back, and they take you to the gutter, that mental asylum. And then God knows what. Yeah? So if you're telling me that's the way we're going to live in this country, and it's going to become like India, because I'm seeing it now. I'm hearing the news. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing what this country is going to be going to after this. People aren't going to take no full ST. People are not going to take it. People are not going to take it, and it's already become like the Soviet Union. Look at the things that I've told on the show. It's already happening right now. So people are going to become very paranoid. People are going to become very intolerant, and basically, little by little, because of these people out here who are dumb and don't even notice what's happening to them, well, they're going to fall in by the laws because the government's going to give in much more things. So that is what they did. That's what they did. That is what they've done. That is what they've propagandized all the way through the long. And I have a different thing to say to it. But this is the way they have the icing on the sugar.
Okay,
you know,
Berchak. So can I stop you there, Berchak, right? Because I want you to conclude, right? I'll give you 60 seconds because I want to I've got a couple of articles I want to actually read out. So,
Yeah.
and then I just want to wrap up, okay? But you can phone in between, all right? Karen.
Yeah, and
Please.
I'll conclude in this though. Whether we like it or not, we're gonna have to face the music unless we don't have someone that represents everybody in general. We're gonna conclude in things, because there won't be no black people, there won't be no disabled people. We'll conclude in that. So it's a very, very bad day for all of us. And it's going to get worse unless someone takes a stand, you know, like me and like Dave, you know. Unless that, then we're finished, aren't we? That's it. I've got to go. Yeah.
Thanks, Berchak.
I concluded.
Yeah,
Bye.
definitely. Keep it locked and tuned in here to Prosperity Radio, by all means.
All right, then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao, Jumbo. All right, so telephone numbers for those people locked in and tuned in. You want to send in a text or you want to phone at any point in time, you're welcome. I've got less than 30 minutes. Numbers are 07305 417 668. I apologize for... I think we had enough time with Dave, and I'm going to give a big respect for him for taking his time to spend with us, okay, and giving us some of his knowledge and experience and how he sees things from his perspective about what's going on with this so-called pandemonium pandemic and the difficult situation that a lot of people are facing and having to deal with in so many different criteria and so many different forms and ways. I think the main thing is that people need to reach out to people where people need to be looked after. I think they've got everybody so prang and paranoid that we can't touch each other now. We can't congregate with each other. We can't even go and visit people in hospitals because, you know, they're saying that, you know, you could cause the infection to spread. And, you know, this is very, very, I don't know, over precautionary aspect that is affecting human society and how humans behave with each other and another. And does it really justify people being isolated, self-isolating themselves, and the paranoia? It's happening in the care homes. You've got people that have been neglected there. People are neglected in hospitals because they can't visit. People are neglected in so many different places, okay, that do need care and attention and support, right? They need contact. They need communication. They need food. They need water. They need substance. They need love, right? And all these things have just been basically eliminated just like that, switched off. But there's two things I want to mention, okay, that I never mentioned last week. 2 articles. I didn't get the time as per usual. All right. And just to fill in the gaps to let you know what's actually going on. Now, you know this already, some of you, but they're talking about, in this article, in the Telegraph, posting anti-vaccine propaganda on social media could become a criminal offence, Law Commissioner says. New Law Commissioner Penny Lewis is leading wide-ranging review into whether UK's offence and abuse laws are fit for the social media age. Posting anti-vaccine propaganda on social media could become a criminal offence, even if those promoting it believe the pseudoscience, the UK's new criminal law commissioner has said. In her first interview since taking up the role, Penny Lewis revealed she's considering whether laws should be amended to lower the threshold of criminality for posting false information online that endangers lives. Wow. Anyway, it goes on to say, it comes as the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, said in September he was looking very seriously at making vaccinations compulsory for state school pupils after the UK lost its official measles-free country status due to a steady fall in MMR immunization rates. Right? So it looks like this is, I mean, it's beyond belief insane, crazy, sick madness going on out here. You know what I'm saying? We actually got lunatics running this planet Earth. Come on, man. This is, all this stuff is so surreal, right? I mean, what I would advise people, right? Look, it's not that I'm anti-vaccinist, anti-vaccines and all this. Okay, I'm not. It's not that. It's just the science behind it does not make no sense, and the chemicals that they're using does not make sense. And if anybody thinks or doubt, you go and follow the mainstream media. Go and kill yourself. Go and knock yourself out, right? Because the mainstream media is not informing you or edifying you to get you to understand what they're talking about, what they're trying to propose to give people, to inject people some chemical in your body, right? Ask them what's in these vaccines. Ask them. This is a simple thing. Right. Let me just quickly go to this, all right? Then I've got one other article I must tell you about, right? All right, this article is what's in your vaccines. I printed this out a few years ago. Like I said, let me see if I can get this call. Greeting, Jumbo. Or Tep.
Hello.
Peace, 100.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, loud and clear, yeah. It's Mac 1 here.
Yes,
I did send a
good,
few
Mac
texts, you know. I don't know if you received it.
Yeah, I received them and I read them out.
Dave a few questions. Oh, you read them out, yeah?
Yeah, I told
there's
Dave and everything. You might have missed it.
Problem with my connection.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did, yeah. But,
yeah, you had about 4 messages.
Yeah, man, that's a powerful brother you had on, you know what I'm saying? You know, give him props, you know, for the things he was saying, you know. He's pretty aware of what's going on in the world and how it's working out. So,
yeah,
you know, big up to him.
Yeah, how important is that? I like what you just said there. How is it important? Because one of the messages I'm trying to put out there is that I'm not trying to tell people what to say or do in their lives. All I'm saying is this, okay? That everybody should have the opportunity to be informed about certain things, right? So,
he's banging on everything.
Yeah.
Banging on everything of the agenda, you know. So, yeah, this one of us called in to big him up. And I hope he comes on again because, you know, people need to know this, you know what I'm saying? And the situation that we're in is a pretty serious situation.
Yeah.
So, you know, big him up.
Yeah. So what did you think? I just read out this article talking about the new law commissioner, Penny Lewis, is leading wide-ranging review into whether UK offence and abuse laws are fit for social media. So basically, what they want to do is they want to ban anybody from talking about vaccinations. They're going to make it a criminal offence.
So it's complete censorship then, basically, of the internet.
Yeah, so complete censorship around 5G, radiation, RFR, vaccines, chemicals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Are you surprised? Brother?
We got it's a complete dumbing down of people that's intelligent. We're talking about people that's intelligent. Everybody's got the intelligence.
Well, it's all about censorship anyway of the internet, and also, you know, because obviously, you know, a lot of people are talking about it on Instagram and Facebook, and texting each other on the WhatsApp as well. Because you know, with the WhatsApp now, they're actually restricting you to like 5 texts a day, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. So they give you these things, and then they start putting laws and stringent laws and regulations on everything.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time they were gonna censor, you know what I mean, the internet and also, you know, content, what's coming out. So I'm not surprised, bruv. I'm not surprised myself.
Yeah, so they're clamping down on anything to do with 5D and now vaccines.
Yeah, because it's telling the truth, isn't it? Anything that tells the truth, you know, they're afraid of people waking up. And they're aware that a majority of people, well, not majority, but a lot of people are waking up to this situation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So now they're actually changing all laws to try and stop people from talking. It's no surprise to me. I mean, maybe to some people, but not to me, bro. You know what I mean? I expected that. You know, it's how we're going to counteract it. You know what I mean? How we're going to deal with it when it's complete censorship. Also, you know, I've got a feeling that the internet, they'll take down the internet soon anyway. I'm sure that's part of their plan. You know what I'm saying? To take down the internet completely.
Well, they need the internet as well. So maybe, I don't know.
Not
They
really,
could have done.
not really.
They could have done it already. Why haven't they done it already? I mean, what's stopping them?
Well, you know, I'm to say they won't.
I think if they did that,
you know
let's
what I'm
look at
saying?
that. If they did that, right, everything was shut down. There would be no electricity, no anything.
Well, they've
No
already
light.
said it in certain articles that, you know, there could be power cuts. There could be a lot of things happening in future. There's, you know, there's obviously no electricity and stuff and no
Because
gas or
everything,
whatever. So
everything's computer automated, isn't it?
they already warned people, you know, in their media that this will happen, you know, one day, especially in the UK. So it's no surprise to me, you know. I mean, they're in control of everything, brother. You know what I mean? They're in control of the whole grid. So you shouldn't be surprised if things go down and so forth. You know? You know what I'm saying? It's just how are we going to cope without these things? That's the question. Because everyone's so used to these technology now and, you know, just basic necessities, you know, how are people going to react to things being taken away from us?
You know, the 5G, I think that if they, I'm thinking about how can we find ways that we can make things better, right? Rather than use things.
You mean to try and shield yourself? You can't really make things better. You got to try and think of ways to actually protect yourself from 5G, especially when they turn it on. They haven't really turned it on yet. You know, they're actually putting it in, you know, while we're in quarantine, while we're in lockdown.
No, in certain places
But,
it's
you know,
on.
it's not fully implemented yet in this country.
Not fully, but
if it was, you'd be seeing people dropping in the street, like what Dave was saying, like what happened in China.
I don't know,
You know
but
what I'm
it depends how much of that frequency that they pumping up, right?
Yeah, but
we
it's
know.
It's not 60. I don't think it's 60 yet, brother.
Well, I don't know. We don't know, but
trust me, if it's 60, you'll know about it, bro.
Well,
you'll know about it.
Well,
yes.
The thing about this thing, I suppose maybe we haven't got the time to go through it, right?
No, we haven't.
It's easy. We can explain it that if you're overexposed to anything, right, it will cause harm and effect. It doesn't matter what it is; it's going to cause an effect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the reason why that we're safe in our homes with a lot of the electrical stuff that we got, because remember now.
Did you say safe in your home?
No, I'm saying reasonably safe. Okay, the reason why
reasonably safe. I don't believe we're safe at all in our homes.
No, to a certain degree, we are reasonably safe in our homes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in our homes, right? But I'm saying we're reasonably safe. Okay.
Okay.
The only, questionable things: microwaves, Wi-Fi. If you've got a smart meter, you know, I mean, even TVs. All electrical things are harmful, right? But what I'm saying is,
harmful,
But what I'm saying is that there's obviously
but 5G is a higher frequency, brother.
Yeah, but there's protocols. There's protocols, okay, that the way that they're, you know, with health and safety regulations and doing risk assessments, okay, they have to keep things to the minimal where it's not going to affect people in their homes, right? So a lot of things are insulated, right, from giving you excess amount of radiation or EMFs, right? You know, it's insulated, right? But what you was just saying
you
about...
said they're insulated.
No, I'm saying a lot of things are insulated, okay? But what
how do you know that? How you know that, brother?
Let me finish what I'm saying, yeah? Then
you need to do an EMF check. You need to do a radiation check.
But listen to this, yeah?
Safe.
So
Anyway,
what I'm saying is, there are EMFs that you cannot see that are emitted, that are resonating even with those electrical things in your houses. Okay. But like I said, they've reduced some of it with the insulation, but it still resonates and emits or dissipates a certain amount of energy. Everything is
the only
storing
way
energy.
you can actually, anyway, but the
No,
only
so
way
what I'm
you
saying
can
is,
actually
what I'm
measure
saying
that
is,
unless you have an EMF meter, then you can actually basically trace the EMF, how much EMF is in the actual home. Yeah.
yeah. So what I'm talking
You know,
about,
otherwise-
overexposure now, when we're talking about overexposure, right, this is where it gets tricky, right? So obviously, if you get overexposed to anything, it's going to cause an effect, depending on how far you're away from it, how dense the effects are, right, and what the strength is. So you've got to take all these different factors into consideration, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that everything's safe in your home, right? I'm saying
No, it's definitely not.
I'm saying
It's
things are
definitely
reasonably safe in your home, but they're not 100%, right? There's a certain amount of radiation in the atmosphere. We just, like you said, in your home environment, you could test for all kinds of things, right? If you've got these meters, you could check for hair, toxic pollution, monoxide, all kinds of things, and radiation. Right.
Oh, okay.
When it comes to overexposure now, the levels that we're talking about is that if it's too intense, of course it's going to fry you, it's going to damage your skin, it's going to damage your inside. The longer that you're exposed to it.
That's what 5G turned up does. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Anything that's overexposure is going to affect you. Even 4G, even 3G, even 2G, even 1G, right?
Yeah, even 4G, exactly. But, you got more chance of really being sick if that frequency's turned up to 60 gigahertz.
That's right. Yeah. So it is being...
And and basically, as you know, the first place it was rolled out was in China.
Well, I've seen
millions of people died from that.
I've seen South
not
Korea.
The proper numbers, but yeah.
No, I've seen South Korea. I think South Korea might have beat China to the rollout. Because this is one of the things I've been looking at. I wanted to know which country rolled out 5G. And there is a coalition, but no one's not talking about South Korea and what's going on in South Korea. What's going on in Iran, and like I was talking to David, and what's going on in Taiwan.
If you go back to as I said, going back to the UK government, they're sensing anything to talk about. Anybody that's talking about 5G and vaccines. So obviously, anybody that talks about it is kind of onto a good thing. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So it's no surprise to me anyway, brother. You know what I mean? So. Anyway, brother, I just want to chime in to the brother you had on.
Yeah.
And I just want to say it was a great show, and hopefully you'll come on again.
Yeah.
And explain more about what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, brother.
Yeah, man.
Because it's not much time to talk now, anyway.
No. Yeah, I'll be winding down in very shortly.
Yeah, roll up the show, innit?
Yeah.
All right, bro. Respect, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your contribution. Thanks for your texts.
Yeah,
much appreciated. Thanks for the work. Look after your family. 100. So, again, I was just going to refer to what's in a vaccine, okay? Because people need to know this. Again, like I said, I was looking at a lot of stuff. There's so much things I could come with to tell you why we live in a system full of toxicities, toxic. Okay? These people, all these industries, these manufacturers, producers, and even foods. Even if you look at your foods, your poultry, yeah, your animal that's been farmed. Okay, look at the way they're being farmed. Okay, whether it's cows, chicken, pigs, sheep, all these animals that's been reared and developed, you can say, for consumption, right? They're all chemicalized. All the foods, you're inducing all these chemicals anyway. You know what I'm saying? And then to add to it, they're giving us injections from birth, from we're a baby. They're pumping out all these chemicals, right? Everything that you eat, They're talking about China. China's producing plastic foods, for goodness sake. How is Africa in the situation that they're in, okay, accepting food from China? And China's producing, manufacturing, right, geoengineering plastic foods. What are we talking about here? What kind of relationship have we got with China? How you explain to me? I got a big thing about this thing. Next week I'm going to go in to talk about this, right? If I get time, right? And really blow the lid off all of this stuff. Because to me, you cannot explain an organization like the World Health Organization, right? Wherever they're getting their money from, going around in Africa, injecting babies, our babies and our children, these same people who are imperialists, right? Colonialists, enslavers, right? The same people that's been doing all this stuff for hundreds and hundreds of years, you give them a license to inject chemicals in your babies. Now, it's wrong, period, to any group of people to put vaccines in somebody's body and you don't even know what it is, right? This article goes on to explain. Most people are not aware that vaccines typically contain, in addition to the viral and bacterial RNA or DNA injected directly into the bloodstream, many of the following fillers, according to Dr. Joseph McCullough, spelled MERCOLA. Half of these things that's in these vaccines, okay, and ask the question, right? Because your government and a lot of these governments do not represent the people. Just like the mainstream media do not represent the mass majority of people in this country called United Kingdom. I've seen this for years. There used to be a little independence in the news corporations or businesses, and news reporters would be independent. Now everything's, oh, you can't say this, you can't say that. They're getting scripted by their editors to say what they're being told to say, right? So they're mimicking what they're being told to say. So you're standing there, sitting down there, watching the news, right? Getting this drip injection of mind-blowing illusions and fantasies, right? But look at what they're saying about the chemicals in your. They got glycerol, which is antifreeze. There's another one that's like an antifreeze, mercury. The names are normally in sort of Greek, classic Greek, or in Latin, Roman Latin, okay? So you can never understand what they're talking about, right? But it gives you the what it is, okay? But they there's two meanings, right? So they give you the medical term and they give you what it actually means, right? So formaldehyde, okay, embalming fluid, formalin gelatin, right? Aluminium phosphide is a fertilizer. And in the foods, you see the foods that you eat, and all these meat products you eating, right, that they've been farmed, you got to think about the pesticides, chemical, insecticides, chemical, fertilizers, chemical. I think recently Monsanto got sued for, I think, over $200 million, right, because a black man got cancer for using their products. And he won his case, right? But none of the mainstream media highlighted that. They never even mentioned it, right? So anyway, all this stuff, I got a long list of stuff that they put in your, they call it fillers, right? And the way they treat you, when they're dealing with these vaccines, you are subject. That's how they classify you. They classify you as a subject. You're not even a person. You're a subject. Oh, this subject's got to take this immunization program. Or that subject's got to take the immunization program. Oh, we've got to do these vaccination programs all around the world. Right? And they're trying to say, oh, we're trying to prevent diseases while they're creating diseases at the same time. and they give you the vaccines that they say they're giving you, that's chemical anyway, to prevent you to give you disease. Complete mad contradiction. It's completely mad contradiction, right? You've got, look, fungus killers, aspartate, yeah, MSG, flavoring enhancers, surgical antiseptics, right? Topical antibiotics for skin rashes, yeah. This is one called neomycin sulfate, right? Estrogen mimic. So what I'm saying is that the same way they're pumping up animals, right, to rear, they pump estrogen in them to make them big and fat, right? It's all about profits, isn't it? Right? And all these companies, every one of them, anytime they get anything that's toxic, it doesn't matter how bad it is, they're gonna be allowed to roll it out, even though people have even complained about it, have done research on it, done reports on it, done studies on it, independent surveys and reports and studies cases on it, right? They ignore it. They throw money at it. They get lawyers and all of this stuff, okay, to shut you down, right? They put human tissues in some of these viruses, okay? Animal tissues, pig blood, horse blood, sheep blood, rabbit brain, dog kidney, chicken embryo, chicken egg, duck egg, African green monkey kidney cells, porcine pancreatic hydrosolate of casein, which is amino acids pulled from hog organs, right? Anyway, there's a letter here that you can read. I'm going to leave you with this and I'm going to go, right? I've got less than 5 minutes. And there's a letter you can write. It says, you can write this letter, or there's a letter that you can get that basically you can get your doctor to sign it, but they'll never sign it, right? And it says there, what assurance from your pediatrician? I got a text, I think, or email. Oh, no. Yeah, let me just stop for a second, and I'll come back to that. Tune into Prosperity Radio this Sunday and enjoy programs, okay, as usual, to make you cheerful. Question, what can you change about yourself going forward? Or do you prefer someone else changing you? Okay, so that's going to be Brother Freestyle here after me between the hours of 6 till 9 p.m. on Prosperity Radio. So keep it locked and stay tuned. He's asking the question, what can you change about yourself going forward? Or do you prefer someone else change you? Right? So the little twist there. So he's asking you 2 questions there, but the second question is kind of twisting. So it's getting you to think. All right? So keep it locked in and tuned in to Prosperity Radio, www.prosperitylondon.co.uk. All right. So going back to this letter, there is a letter that you can draw up. Again, like I said, it says, what assurances from your pediatrician baby doctor about vaccines? Here's a form designed by Ken Anderson, all right? So maybe you can type that in, Ken Anderson. You can give them to fill out all those. So what he's saying is you can give this form out for the physician to fill out, but he's saying nowhere on earth will they sign it. So it says there, physician's warranty of vaccine safety. Hi, physician's name. And you put the degree of the person's name and details there. A physician licensed to practice medicine in the state of whatever, you know. And basically, you get this doctor to fill in this form. I have thorough understanding of the risks and benefits of all the medications that are prescribed for or administered to my patients. In the case of patient's name, your name, and your age, you'll put there whom I've examined. I find that certain risk factors exist that justify the recommended vaccination. The following is a list of said risk factors, the vaccinations that will protect against them. All right, and then there's the risk factors. Yeah, you put the risk factors down yourself, innit? and what vaccinations they're going to give you, and they have to put the risk factors down. And then it's got here, I'm aware that vaccines typically contain many of the following fillers. All right, and I've just expressed that the different fillers, you can have a long list of all these fillers, and if you just tap in what's in your vaccine, you should get that information. Other than that, query me next week, and I'll definitely find a way to make sure you get that information. All right. So there was one other thing, talking about wet markets. The WHO said that they're supporting wet markets to stay open. Other than that, we'll talk. I want to say thank you for taking the time and the energy for tuning in and listening to me, Sayshara, here on a Sunday afternoon in the Sunday Interactive Talk Show. I'm out of here. Till next time, next place here.